Mhm.
Mustafa, do I have that right? From Minnesota, pronouns are he, him. Mustafa,
Y-
are you with us, my friend?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I am able to hear you. You want to talk about what today?
Yeah. So I just saw the prompt of the video. It said, "Can you make a defense for theism?" Or something to that regard. And this is actually something that I changed my mind about in the past few months. So yeah, I am an atheist. I do not believe in God, and as you can tell by my name, I'm an ex-Muslim. And I've and just over talking to various different people, I've come to the conclusion that it's not really like the power of religion is not as strong as we often like to perceive it to be. Sometimes it's really just it's all about what an individual gets out of it and what they bring to it. Um, and funny enough, I actually made friends with a stripper who is converting to Islam, and when I met her, I had all the anti-Islam talking points ready, um, ready to go on her about why that is a terrible idea. You should not convert to Islam. But I'm not an imam. Like I'm not, well, I have no business in telling her what to do or what not to do. Um, it, and honestly, she finds peace in it, and she's not taking any of the objectively toxic, you know, pardon my friends, but just the shittiest aspects of the religion. So yeah, I mean, like if that's
So
what
she's
what
not going to
what
be she's not going to be forced to wear a bag, because I was looking at the great irony of going from getting paid to take your clothes off to being commanded by a bunch of men to keep more clothes on than ever.
exactly, yeah, and trust me, I brought that up, but yeah, no, she's not she's not going to be doing that.
All right,
But
hang on.
yeah, like
I'm
I didn't
lost.
want to.
Will is she or is she not going to convert to Islam?
Oh no, she already did.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
Yeah. But
You had a
yeah,
comment or question
so
on that, or what?
oh yeah, no, that was just sort of my 2 cents on the matter because again, that's what I saw the stream prompt on was, is there a defense for theism? I'm not sure if you had a counter to that or something else that you
Well, hang
wanted
on.
to bring
Are
up.
you saying? Forgive me again. There's a little bit of a delay, but I want to make sure we're rolling along. Are you saying it's kind of a useful fiction thing? It gave meaning and
Yeah.
structure. So, hey, if it works for her, whatever. Is that what you're asking about?
Oh yeah, that's the conclusion I've come to the past few months of talking to various people. I mean, as long as I'm not being forced to, like not eat pork or drink or, um, just whatever. Like, as long as it doesn't impact me, have at it. That's really where it comes down to for me.
Matt, you want to jump in?
Are you saying as long as somebody else's religion doesn't impact you, it's fine? Well, are you, I'm confused because it seems like, yes, there are plenty of reasons for someone to adopt a particular theistic label and to act as if they were a theist in public. But the only reason to be the only reason you could be a theist, to genuinely believe, is that you're convinced of the truth of the proposition. Being convinced of the utility of it, that's like saying, it's it's better for me to join the neighborhood watch program, because I'll look good in the eyes of my neighbors, but I don't really think the neighborhood watch program is a good thing. I don't really believe that we should do it. And when it's my job to be on watch, I'm not actually going to patrol the neighborhood. I'm just going to sit in my car and scroll Instagram. That there's a difference between being actually in the neighborhood watch program, because you're convinced that it's a good thing that we need and is pointing to something truthful, and the other one, you're just a fucking liar.
Yeah, and I totally see where you're coming from, but the thing about religion is that it's always been cherry picked and it's often watered down. I mean, the Christianity today is not the Christianity from
So
2,000
what?
years ago.
So what? When I was a Christian, I genuinely believed in the tenets of Christianity. I genuinely believed that Jesus Christ was God incarnate, who came down, suffered and died, went to heaven, and that salvation was a gift from God by grace through faith, where I would determine where I could spend eternity. Whether or not there are aspects of Christianity or other religions that have changed or fallen out of favor, like I was a Southern Baptist. Some versions of Southern Baptist didn't play cards and didn't dance, and none of them drink. I played cards and danced, but drinking was those things aren't key aspects of the religion. So, I mean, if you're
I mean,
basically
I'm not.
saying
Oh, sorry.
there are instances where someone will benefit in a positive way from participating in a religious tradition, yes, that's absolutely true, and it's one of the reasons why I work so hard to change the world so that stops being true. Because what that is religious privilege. It means that by merely being a member of this group, or saying you're a member of this group, you get privileges that you shouldn't. If we can get to the point where religions are no longer a privileged position, where the secularists are no longer a disparaged minority, then now you've got, now the people who are participating in religions are going to be doing it only because they're convinced that it's actually true, and not because they're convinced that it's useful.
I'm glad you brought that up. And I don't want to sound arrogant, and I'm not trying to do a gotcha or anything. But could you tell me a little bit about these religious privileges that are in our society?
Well, I'm sorry, what?
Can you share
He
some
he
of these
wants to know.
religious
He wants
privileges?
examples of religious privilege in society. Let me stop you and ask:
Yes,
which society, which part of the country, which region, which where are you speaking about? Saying that you're an ex-Muslim. Where are you located?
Minnesota.
Okay. Are you
Cool.
speaking to privilege in the United States?
Yes, or to your own experience if we're talking about the regions in the U.S. I'm not sure exactly where you're located.
All right, sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
No, it's so the religious privilege is everything from tax exempt status for churches by default, a general view within the public that religious people are more moral, or are morally superior, or that you need to involve your children in religion, or that you need to act as if you believe these things or actually believe these things that are false in order to participate in this group thing. If I pack up and move from my town to a new town anywhere in the United States, there's a church. When I was a Southern Baptist, there's going to be a Southern Baptist church anywhere there, and it's going to be a built-in community that already accepts me, that they can take advantage of me, and or I can take advantage of them, merely because we identify both with this label. It's not like that if you're an atheist. There are more and more secular communities, and we are doing, more to build them, but we're in a minority position without the advantages and privileges. um, there are city councils that start every meeting with a prayer, an invocation. There are people who are convinced that, despite the fact that In God We Trust wasn't added to the pledge until the 50s, and or sorry, In God We Trust wasn't added to all of the money until the 50s, and One Nation Under God wasn't added to the pledge until the 50s, that this has always been a Christian nation. And so the default view is that this is a Christian nation, and that Christians and Jews will side together against Muslims, Christians, Jews, and Muslims will side together against atheists. It's about drawing lines and saying, we're on this side of the line, you are not. You are not in this in group. Um, I don't know how anybody could be blind to the blatant, overwhelming religious privilege in the United States, in particular, when you have default tax exempt statuses for religions right out of the gate, and there's a church on every freaking corner. Um, and when used to be, it's not as much anymore, but it used to be, if you moved into a new house, the first thing that happened is you got flooded with people inviting you to come to their church. And so if you were part of any of those, really, you're Catholic, you're Presbyterian, whatever, you have a community built in. That's a mountain of privilege.
And
Yeah,
for
and
your
I
friend who
totally.
is entering these, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I cut you off. I'd rather have you finish.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm just saying, if we want to pinball over to your friend who has entered the Islamic faith, we're talking about a planet with 13 Muslim majority, theocratic, really oppressive countries that dehumanize women, right? So your friend has entered a culture which fundamentally has removed part of her autonomy, her identity, her authority, and she is then at the mercy of a religion that says she must follow a male authority or a male lead. She is part of a culture that wants to cover, which is another kind of dehumanization and control, women. And this whole idea that Islam loves and honors and respects women is just propaganda. Islam itself meaning submission, a religion that was created by men for men, women considered the property of men. So even if her life as a Muslim doesn't affect you, it doesn't matter to you. Well, it doesn't mean it shouldn't matter. Does that make sense?
I can see where you're coming from. So I do just want to backtrack a little bit to what you said about religious privilege. And those issues are certainly present across the country. However, as you alluded to, it is shrinking. People are leaving churches, their religions, and that goes for Islam too, in a very high rate. So I can see that as not being as big or as prevalent within at least my lifetime. I'm 20. I'm 26. So
Well, Mustafa,
I see where you're coming from there. Yeah.
does it matter if it's not true?
In my opinion, I honestly do not care whether it is true or not true.
Okay,
Me,
all right, hang
I
on.
do
Hold
not
on.
think it's true.
You don't care whether a truth claim, with a capital T now, this is an absolute truth claim. You don't care if it's true or not true?
Nope. As long as it's not impacting me.
How do you know it's not impacting you?
Well, if that person is an elected official, then that would certainly impact me. But if it's just some person who lives on my street, minding their own business, then it's not impacting me.
If they're living part of a culture that is communally propagating a bad idea, they are then presenting those ideas in their own circles of influence. They are having children and they are indoctrinating those children with those same ideas. Even if they're more
You see,
benign than what the fundamentalists are preaching, they're still not supported and in many cases absolutely debunked. How do you know that all of this isn't going to ripple out into the larger human condition and, if not affect you, affect somebody like you? Does that matter to you?
because religions, as they age, have a tendency to basically water themselves down. I mean, like I
Yeah, I
said,
get that.
Christianity today.
I get that. Look, if it's a watered down, look, if they went from saying that the infidel has to be beheaded to the moon is made of cheese, all right? I mean, let's just say they just went over here to some totally benign thing. They are still propagating ideas that are untrue and they are untethering people from the real world. There is a lot of there's been a lot of studies done about people who are indoctrinated, especially at an early age. They have a much more difficult time in their life separating fact from fiction. They more readily embrace magical thinking. So, if it's true or not, may affect how grounded they are in the real. And these people are going to have influence. They will influence others who will influence others as part of the human condition. But where's your empathy center? Like, do you not want to see people rescued from the false so that they can embrace the true?
It often depends on how you go about it. Um, when it comes to getting people to the truth, and also what their faith or ideology is doing to them personally, and how it's impacting the people around them. And this might be a weird segue, but this is something I did kind
Hang
of
on,
want to
hang on. I want to
do.
hold on. Hang on. Now, I'm going to hand things
Okay.
over to Matt in just a second. You're talking about how it impacts someone. Do you know how Islam and her specific new Muslim culture will impact her? What do you think the rules may be for her? Do you know?
Well, she lives in Minnesota with me, so I do not think it's going to impact her at all. In fact, I even I literally shared my experiences with Islam with her, and she always retorts to this, oh, well, I have my own view, and I hope she's not listening to this, but
Okay, so she's
yeah,
not a
so
Muslim. So she's not a Muslim. You don't give a shit about truth, and neither does she. I have zero patience or interest for people who don't care whether something's true and don't think that this shit impacts the world, while we live in a world that is ravaged by wars, misogyny, homophobia, all at the hands of religion, not exclusively at the hand of the religion, but religions amplify all that. I don't, I am the beneficiary of a bucket of privilege in many different categories, and yet still I am not as privileged as you are to be able to not give a fuck whether or not these things are true and not give a fuck about how they
okay.
impact the world or the people. I mean, Jesus Christ, dude. Are you financially set for life where you don't have to work? Do you not care about whether or not someone has a right to choose how to live their life, what to do about a pregnancy? Um, just
So
the,
okay,
the absolute eh, apathy that you have is one of the most offensive things I've ever heard.
so Matt, I totally respect you, and
It's not mutual.
I hate to make this accusation, but you are trying to put words in my mouth. I do care if
If I,
they
why
are
would
in
you
a
care? Why
position
would
of
you care if I
power.
put? Why would you care if I put words in your mouth? You don't give a shit if anything's true.
Well, if you just admitted you're putting words into my mouth,
No, I
then
didn't.
it
No,
has
I
to be. I
didn't
mean,
just
that's
admit
clear.
that. No, I didn't. I didn't admit that at all. Why are you putting words in my mouth? What I said is, why would you care if I put words in your mouth? I didn't put any words in your mouth. You're the one that said you didn't care if it was true.
No, I see. That's where I put the but,
Rewind.
which I said as long as they're not an elected official or someone with an
No,
actual
Seth asked you how
power
you
over.
knew it. Seth asked you how you knew it wasn't impacting you, and you didn't have an answer to that. You are one of the most apathetic individuals I've ever talked to on these shows, because you have a friend who's willing to convert to Islam, and you're like, as long as it doesn't impact me, okay. I'm not suggesting that you should try to stop her or that that should actually be your goal, but to be so cavalier about all this. Well, you ask, you want me to defend why I think there's religious privilege. How on earth can you live in the United States of America and not be aware of religious privilege?
Well, you know what? That I will definitely take. I'll definitely take that. I do live in a pretty secular part of the country, so if that's where my apathy seems to be very present, then that certainly is why.
I
Um,
think if there was look, if there was a line that I would put on a T-shirt for you, I just as you go, ask yourself, if it doesn't matter to you, does it still matter? And I think that's to be myopic and to say, well, it doesn't affect me, therefore it doesn't affect. It doesn't matter to me, it doesn't impact me, therefore it doesn't matter or impact. Well, I think that again, it
Hold
is a
on,
position of privilege.
okay. I asked you. I was not trying to be passive aggressive. I was genuinely asking you to gain information.
No,
Mustafa,
I'm not
you live
coming
in you
after
live in
you.
Minnesota. You live in Minnesota, right?
Yes.
According to a 2015 Pew Research Center survey, 74% of Minnesotans identify as Christian, which is slightly higher than the national average of 71%. So, given that that's the case, how do you justify your claim that you live in a more secular version of the area of the United States?
Glad you asked. So just because you identify with a religion does not mean that the laws are going to directly result in it. Like, for example, there's a higher proportion of Muslims in Turkey than there is in Saudi Arabia. And keep in mind, Turkey, there's no law saying you gotta identify this religion or you're gonna get your head cut off. Like, people have the free will to just identify what religion they want to be part of, and you can see just
You
from the
said you
street, from their media,
you said
that
you lived in a
they
more
are like.
secular area. You don't.
Can you repeat that?
You said you lived in a more secular area. The facts show that you don't.
Again, by identity. I'm not saying it's like
What
Texas where
does
they're literally
if you
passing.
say if you say that you live in a more secular area, what are you pointing to other than identity? Because right now it sounds like you're cherry picking.
Matt, I just explained to you that your religious identity does not always result in what kind of laws you're going to have to go through or whatever. And that's why
You
I
didn't
picked
you
that
didn't
church as an
say
example.
you did not say I live in an area with more secular focused laws than other areas. You said you lived in a more secular area. That's not true.
Okay, then that's what I meant then.
Okay. What about Minnesota laws make it more secular than any place else?
Well, for starters, we're not we're the only state in this part of the country that isn't going batshit crazy about restricting abortion access. In fact, there's been so many people from the Dakotas, Iowa, and Wisconsin crossing over here to get what
what a
they have the
brilliant
right to get.
assessment of secularity that you're not going batshit crazy over abortion laws. Well, at
You're the
least you're
only
aware.
state, the
Yeah, at least you're
the
aware that
only
somebody
official.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know. I'm hearing
Also,
what it's like watching a gnat fly in various directions. We pinballed from Minnesota to privilege to Islam to you have free will, you have freedom to be able to be Islamic or not in Turkey, if not Saudi Arabia, and on all of this is just becoming a big noise. It's a big soup. I think at the end of the day, the point is this: it doesn't have to matter to you for it to matter. And it does matter if it's true or false, because false ideas, bad ideas, magical thinking, even propaganda, these things can be weaponized. They can misguide people. They can untether them from a real world that they desperately need a foundation on. So when you look at your own situation and that of others, is it true? Should be one of the lead questions I think you should ask. Is that fair?
oh yeah, that is certainly fair.
I have a question, and that is let's just assume that you're right, that you are in a largely secular area of the United States. How is that not just an example of privilege? That you live in a particular part of the United States where you're not as impacted as people in other parts. So therefore you don't care about it because it's not impacting you right now. What if you have to leave Minnesota and move
So
somewhere else?
I don't understand why you keep going back to that. I explained to you. I asked you about the privilege
You
because
said
I
you
was
don't care
speaking.
if it's true as long as it's not impacting you. And I talked about religious privilege, and your response to religious privilege was to suggest that you don't live in an area where there's any particular where religious privilege is not a big of a deal. And I'm like,
I was
okay,
exemplifying.
even if that were true, and it's not as big a deal where you are, what about the rest of the United States? How is it not just a matter of privilege if Louisiana is underwater? It doesn't do any good for you to say, I live in Colorado, we're not flooding here.
Matt, I was exemplifying a friend. You're talking about people with power where you live.
Wow.
There's a
You
very
just
stark difference in the people that
are you
we're exemplifying.
incapable or undesirable of actually addressing the point that was made? Exemplifying a friend? You said you lived in a more secular area. How is that exemplifying your friend? You said you only cared if it was true, whether or not it impacted you. How is that exemplifying your friend? How many corners are you going to get backed into before you just acknowledge that you got called out correctly?
About what? Well, we're talking
About
about
your
two
fucking
separate.
apathy on whether or not something is true and how it's actually impacting people other than you self-focused guy.
I, I, I,
Go do something for other people for a change.
Okay, hold on. You
No,
do
I don't
not
need to
know
hold on.
what I
I
think.
don't need to hold
I do.
on.
You
I'm
know,
done with you, Mustafa. I'm done with you.
you know nothing about me. Fuck you, Matt.
I know lots of things about you because you've been proud enough to talk about them on the air.
It's an interesting point. He's gone, by the way, of Christian privilege. I was doing a laundry list in my head when people say, well, what's it like to be a non-Christian in this country? And I watch the Christian culture, many in the Christian culture constantly cry persecution. We're persecuted. They want to be martyrs. They want to be victims so much. And they have to manufacture this persecution because it simply does not exist. In fact, the reverse is true. I mean, Christians get time off work for their religious holidays. They've got freedom to display religious symbols on their property, private property, whether it's crosses or nativity scenes. They have this narrative. They're coming to take the plastic baby Jesus. You can tune on the radio. There's religious TV and radio. There are more than 300,000 Christian churches in this country. They can worship 24/7 pretty much anywhere, even in their own homes. They can evangelize. There are Bibles. It's the most printed book in history. They can buy Bibles pretty much anywhere. They can wear religious jewelry and apparel and have the cross tattoo or the crown of thorns. There's a high probability their religious or their political representative will claim that religion. You can have religious or Christian homeschooling. The oath is often sworn on a Bible. If you go to a hotel room, do you find a science book or the Vedas? No, it's the freaking Bible. You got film production companies like PureFlix, et cetera, making films and money on those films. This idea that Christianity is persecuted and that Christians are not privileged in this country is a freaking punchline. It's just a joke.
Yeah, I get it. There's an aspect to Mustafa's attitude that's shared by a lot of people, a lot of secular people, and that is, yeah, and this is going to make some people mad, but I don't care. We have a very complex life that we have to live. And you are going to do better, generally speaking, in the United States, if in fact you are part of one of the majority religions, or if you are never openly hostile or challenging to one of the open major religions. And Mustafa is an atheist calling in to argue for the utility of theism on behalf of a friend who acknowledged that he doesn't care whether or not it's true as long as, unless it's actually impacting him. Mustafa is in group 2. Mustafa is there is a disadvantage to challenging or calling out religion or standing in opposition to religion. And I get it, Mustafa, you're a coward and a selfish coward, but that's okay because you are one of many selfish cowards. I would say the bulk of secular individuals are selfish and cowardly with regard to that, because there's a genuine risk to what Seth and I and others do. People have lost jobs, lost family members. I'm under attack on a regular basis. I can't post a video without somebody coming in and immediately attacking me or attacking Arden or whatever. That's just something that we accept. If you don't want to be involved in that, that's your prerogative. And I'm in favor. There are people who are like, oh, there's just too much risk in challenging religion. Yes, I agree. And if you want to live your life and you've determined that it's better for you and your family for you to not challenge religion, for you to go along to get along, I'm not saying anything to you or about you. But don't call into the fucking show.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jimmy Snow. I'm the executive producer of The Line. And at night, I sneak into Matt Dillahunty's house and I trade his cereals for other cereals. He comes out and he's like, wait, these are cereals I buy, but I swear I had different cereals. Anyway, would you like to support this channel or any specific show? You can do so over on Patreon or in channel memberships. There are special tiers for special shows or for the channel at large, and it helps us expand programming as well as hopefully very soon launch it in podcast form. Now, also, if you'd like to support, you can you can subscribe, you can leave a comment or a super thanks, which is a special highlighted comment that you pay for. Those are fun. And, screw the algorithm, go check out something over here, I suppose. Boy, I hope I can still put those icons there, because if I can't, this is going to look really stupid. I'm going to go buy some Cocoa Puffs and switch out Matt's mini wheats now.